Hey, how's it going? So what we're going to be talking about today is how to move the report container down on page 1, but leave it in its proper space every other page. So what we're going to do is, you can see I use the standard cut list, and I'm going to go to setup mode. If we were looking at our reports, we would hit setup reports, and I'm going to find standard cut list, or whatever report you're working with will work just the same. So I'm going to hit copy and say, I'm going to call it test. All right, and then hit design report. So the first thing I want to do is set up some variables. We don't have to set up these variables, but this makes it easier for us to calculate everything out properly. So we're going to go to project, user variables, and we're going to create our first user variable, which is going to be margins. What we're using this for will be to determine the margins all around the entire page. So I will say I want a 1-inch margin around. We'll go 25.4. Now the reason we're setting this up and not hard coding it into any other variables is if I want to change that margin to be smaller, let's say I want a 16 millimeter margin around, all I have to do is change this one variable and everything will auto-calculate around it. So next I will create my next variable, which we want it to be the width of the report container. So we'll call this RC for report container width and hit OK. This is a slightly more complicated formula, so I'm going to hit edit to show you how to do this. So the first thing we want to do is find out the width of the page. So from here to here. We can do that with a built-in variable called page size, basically, and we can either type in here in the box, or we can go to variables, LL for list and label, device, page, size, and then CX and CY. And you can see it gives the description of it: vertical paper size, horizontal paper size. We want the horizontal paper size, so we'll double click on that. We can see it's 215.9, which if we look up here, I guess that's close enough. In the ruler I can't really tell, but this is the actual size of it. Now we want to subtract the margins from that, so we're going to say minus open parentheses at margins times 2. Now we do at times 2 because we want to subtract a margin from here and from here, so that gives us 165.10 millimeters, which I know from experience in a calculator that that's the correct value that I'm looking for the width. So that's done. We'll hit OK, and you'll see now it's there in the value here, and it tells us the expression is correct. The next thing we need to figure out is the height of the report container, so the distance we want here and here. Now we're going to create our new variable. We'll call it RC height and hit OK. And this is even more complex than the width because we need that height to be different on page 1 than on every other page. So we'll hit edit, and again we're going to go to our page size, and this time we're going to go CY. All right, so we know it's 279.4. If I look at this ruler, we see 260s right here, so that's very plausible and perfect for what we need. It's always going to return the proper value, but just wanted to illustrate it. So now, actually, let's delete this since we know that works. We actually have to go to our condition tab because we want to see what happens on page. We want page 1 to have something different than page 2. So in the condition, we want to say page, open and close parentheses, which is a function inside of the report editor, list and label, that tells us what's the current page number. If I hit the edit button, we can see that it's an error because it's returning a number. This is a 1-based index, which means that it starts on page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The reason I mention that is a lot of things start with a 0-based index, but you have to remember this one's 1-based. So we'll say if it equals 1, now we're true. It's returning true because when we're in the designer, we're always on page 1. So we will hit OK on that, and now we have a value that returns a true value, or basically a question. We have a condition that says what to do on page 1. What happens if it's true? That's the next thing we need to fill out. Okay, so we're going to go to edit, and we're going to say page.size.cy, which gives us that height we got before. And this time we're going to say minus at margins. And that brings us removes one of the margins, so 25.4 millimeters at this time, from that height. And now I want it to dip down a very additional number. So we'll make that, say, I don't know, 70 millimeters from the top, and we'll hit OK. The reason that I didn't use a variable for that right now is because when I was testing it earlier, if I try to put two variables that I've made here, two user variables, it's for some reason returns a string value. And that causes errors, because when I try to position things, I can't use strings, I have to use numbers. So that's why we're hard coding this one. If I come up with a workaround on how to do that, I'll put that in the notes or comments of this video. But until then, we're just doing this. So what happens if it's false? So if it's not on page 1, it's on page 2, 3, 4, 5, 25, whatever. We're going to then calculate the height here. Again, we'll go to the CY value, and this time we will do at margins times 2, just like the width we did. And now it returns a different value. We'll hit OK, and then we'll hit Insert. And there we go. So now we have a height for page 1 and a height for page everything else. So we'll hit OK, and you see it's correct. Now we have all of the values that we need here, and we'll just hit OK. Nothing's changed though, because we haven't actually set the variables to the report container. So we'll click on that. Make sure to click on the report container, not just click on this, because this is going to click on whatever table we're working with. So report container, and now I need to set the left value, which is the distance from the left edge of the page to the left edge of the container. And we will set that to our at margins value. And you see nothing changed, because that's what we want it to do. Same thing with the top. We want to know what's the top, from the top edge of the page to the top of the container. This is where we're going to create a formula. Again, we're going to go to condition. We're going to say page equals 1. What happens if we're on page 1? We're going to make that 70 millimeters. If it's false, we're going to go at margins. And again, you can at any time click edit to test it or create another formula, whatever you want. So then we're going to delete this 14 millimeters, and we're going to insert our new value and hit OK. And now you can see it immediately dropped the container down 70 millimeters from the top. Look here, it is literally right at 70. So now we need to fix the width stuff. So we can make this at RC width. Again, you can hit the formula button to check it and figure out what you need it to be. And then we're going to say at RC height. And now you can see it's resized it to give a 25.4 millimeter margin here at the bottom and our 70 millimeter margin at the top. So now I'm going to save this, close it. We'll go to view mode real quick, and you can see it's already dropped down the first page, but every other page is at the proper height we need. Now, why would we need this? Well, if I have a series of check boxes or text values that I have to enter at the very beginning of the page, I can set that up here. All right, that allows me to have a special header or any kind of information that's not something that Cabinet Vision can fill out, something that might have to be filled out before it leaves Cabinet Vision. I can't give an exact example of it, but we could then go here to Design Report, and on the first page, we could, insert a rectangle and insert, I don't know, barcode just for the heck of it. So whatever we need, and then we can look at this. We can right-click on it and assign it to layer, and we could put it on the first page. Right-click on this, go to assign to layer, first page, hit OK. We'll save that. And then you can see I have this barcode, whatever I would need it to be. Even if it was just a fixed barcode, I could use that here. And then every other page doesn't have it because it doesn't need it. So there we go. So now you know not only how to adjust the size for the first page, but you can also add items that you don't want on every single page of the report. Hope this helps, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask on our eSupport website at esupport.planet.com.